With the focus on Lavaloon defense, people often leave their splash damage exposed on the perimeter. This is a Witch 3-star, it's a repeatable raid, same format as usual, music first, strategy second. Okay, apart from being a really sick raid, the All Witch raid, I'm doing this vid because look, this is starting to come up a bit, and there's good reasons for that, which is bases that have got reasonable balloon defense and hog defense can be vulnerable to this raid type, and I'll explain that as we go through the base. Now, a couple of things I want to draw your attention to on the base. First is, okay, so this is a typical war base. It's got 5 pocket middle, and it has 6 pockets around the outside. So what I want to draw your attention to there is the common war base at the moment has something very similar. Often around about a 5 pocket middle, and they actually have 8 pockets around the outside. So this is not too far off a typical war base in terms of, and so that's why this strategy is relevant, because it shows that maybe a typical war base can be taken apart by this strategy. Second thing, it's max walls, so this is not easy to witch. This is a all ground attack, and yet it's still got taken to pieces. Now, next on it, in terms of Lavaloon defense, what a lot of people do just to keep the whiz towers out of air defense range. Often the whiz towers, I've tried to get my whiz towers deep, and I can only do it with an unbalanced air defense. I'm not prepared to run that in clan wars. But in terms of keeping the air defences out of whiz tower range, often the whiz towers are pushed fairly shallow, so they're often exposed to being taken down quite cheaply. The other thing here is, in terms of Lavaloon raids, mortars aren't particularly useful. So often what people do is, they'll put the mortar very, very shallow, and here the defender is using the mortar to get loons to bunch early in the defence. So that's reasonable Lavaloon defence strategy. But what it's done is open up the opportunity for the other raid. So in terms of the splash damage, you can see the splash damage is all very shallow, and that's driven by two things. One is because mortars are useless against Lavaloons, and the second thing is in terms of keeping the air defences out of whiz tower range, that's why they're shallow. So the third thing about this base I wanted to draw attention to is around hog defence. Now in hog defence, you've got the question about what do you do with your giant bombs, and I think you'll see in some other replays I'll post that where you got one double bomb trap and 3 single bombs, you can actually crack that base with hogs. And so what I do in hog defense still is I try and place double bomb traps. I actually probably wouldn't design them this way because the hogs might sort of path a funny way, but I try and place double bomb traps, what I call semi-deep, so not where you can just bust into a pocket and then king can take up two double bombs, or queen can take up 2 double bombs, but semi-deep, so not in the centre, because otherwise if the hybrid gets in the centre you set up all your bombs, and also place them in opposite corners or sort of opposite positions to the Inferno. So if someone's going a hybrid, they can take down the Inferno, but then they've got one more Inferno and 2 double bomb traps to deal with. Or so I like to place them in opposite corners, if I'm running diagonal Infernos, opposite corners to the Infernos and semi-deep. Now that's what this person's done here, and that's what's neat about this attack, is where you've got 2 double bomb traps, if you can work out a way of navigating around the base using jump spells without triggering those double bombs, effectively, witches can be really dangerous. And so I think that's where this attack style has a role, which is if you're not comfortable with Lavaloons on the base, and if you're looking at the base and you're saying, well, the actual hog defense, they've got 2 semi-deep double bomb traps, I can only take out 1 Inferno, I just can't take out enough to pull off hogs. That's where, if the base has also got shallow splash damage, that's where this attack has a role. Now I'm going to look at how the base was taken apart in stages, because I think it's a repeatable raid, and these stages I think are the repeatable stages. So the first part is you need to take out the splash damage, and you can see here with really shallow mortars, they don't have a lot of air defense covering them. They basically just got 1 archer tower each, and what he's just done very quickly is drop 4 balloons, 1 on each, to take down the mortars. Next he drops a golem to draw whiz tower fire in the north, and then dumps all his witches on the top of the base. And you can see, look, I think the golem's dumped here mostly to draw fire off the wall breakers. Whiz towers seem to chew up wall breakers really easily, but they don't seem the best defense versus witches, because I don't know, they just don't have enough range, and the skeletons get far enough in front of them that they seem to take down whiz towers fairly easily. So my guess is here that the golem was dumped to draw the whiz tower fire so he could bust the north wall. But the key thing here is just the angle of attack. The reason he's approached from the north here with the whiz towers is because he wants to take on 1 Inferno in the CC at a time. Taking on 2 Infernos with witches is just going to be too much. So I think that's why he's approached it from the north here. I think he's dropped the golem to draw the fire off the wall breakers, opened the pocket, and then the witches have come in and killed the wizard towers. But that said, having dropped the golem, that's going to draw the fire of the whiz towers, and the witches weren't at risk, so it's probably the safe play. Okay, I don't know if you noticed from the clock, but at the start of the raid, this raid took 3 minutes and 2 seconds, so it was line ball on the clock. And what that means is you don't have time to lure. You're going to have to do a zap. And that's, I guess, relevant because often that means that when you're coming into the base, you're going to be taking on an Inferno and a clan castle at the same time. Now the way this has been dealt with is by carrying 2 freezers, and so what he's going to do, he's going to freeze the clan castle troops and the Inferno, ideally freeze them both at once. He's going to pick an angle where when they come out, he can freeze the 2 at once, and that way his skeletons can work their way through most of the clan castle troops and then take on the Inferno. And with 17 witches, he's got enough skeletons that they will take the Inferno fire. But the risk is, if you don't freeze your clan castle troops, they're going to take out a lot of the skeletons. That might leave the Inferno with enough beams to start taking out some witches, and you can't have that. And so that's why he has looked to freeze both the Inferno and the clan castle troops twice, just to make sure he can. He doesn't want those clan castle troops destroying a lot of his skeletons and those Inferno beams starting to take down some of his witches. Now, witches are the engine room of this raid, so it's critical in the raid to actually protect your witches through the raid. And one of the key things to watch for is witches aren't good from side-on defences. Like, the skeletons will go forward, and what that'll do is expose the witches. So one of the key things here is the exposure of the witches. Look, he's got tons of witches here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or something like that. The issue is you want to protect them from the side-on defences because you've got your skeletons running forward, and this raid could have gone better if he dropped a giant, say here or here, just to protect his witches a bit. So let's have a look at this in a bit more proximity, a bit closer, and look at where he loses his witches. So he's got most of his witches here. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's probably got, you know, all 17 at that stage. But then look at how he actually loses them. So the skeletons are sort of running through here. Witches are pretty well protected here. But you can see that what's going to happen is some of these cannons, when the skeletons are gone, some of these cannons are going to lock in some of the witches, and that's where he loses some of the witches. So first, so he's got good use of the king here, so he's used the king to draw fire off the witches there. But you can see he's got witches that are basically exposed to this cannon here. If he dropped a giant here, pretty cheap, you know, or 2 giants, you know, would have probably saved a bunch of witches, which he's about to lose to his skeletons. And so, you know, maybe I think it's worth thinking about dumping, say, 1 witch and carrying some fire drawing troops just to, as the witches pass through areas of the base, which is a bit dangerous, you might want to think about how to protect your witches. So here goes 1 witch, there goes another witch. So you can see he's losing witches to the sort of side defences there, and that could have been avoidable. Clearly, one of the keys to this raid is how you use your jump spells and where you place them, because you're drawing a balance here. You want to open up as many pockets as you can. You don't want skeletons trying to work their way through blue walls. It's going to take a long time and take a lot of fire. And also you want to navigate the giant bombs. So this raid was a second raid, so New World probably all the giant bombs were. But there was 2 here, and there's 1 down the bottom of the base in the south. So you can see what he's done here is he's opened up a pocket here, but he's made sure it's not open enough that it's going to draw skeletons and potentially witches into this pocket with the giant bombs. And when he's open, and you can see he doesn't open this pocket with the giant bombs, he lets the witches work their way through. Second is he opens up 1, 2, 3, 4 pockets here with this jump, so he's opening up a lot of pockets. But again, the defense has gone down here. The witches won't route into here. If they do, they're going to route into here, then down here, but they won't actually trigger the double bombs. So he's very careful with where he places his jumps. So as they're working their way through the base, they won't go to a place where there's double bombs. Because if they do, the trouble with giant bombs is they've got a big blast radius, they can take out a whole lot of witches, and then the raid's over. The final key thing with a witch raid is you need to protect your heroes. Your heroes are going to do the majority of your damage, particularly your queen. Queen, you know, at max does over 400 points of damage per second. It's your key damage producing unit. So you'll notice here that he drops to the queen, so it's well protected. Well, here it's protected by the golem, but then it's well protected by the skeletons of the witches. Also, you'll notice that when he drops the king will also be dropped where a lot of the fire is going elsewhere. So I think the king's dropped somewhere over here. But most of the fire is going to the skeletons, and the key to like these raids working is particularly a queen is going to do most of the damage. You need to keep your queen alive, so you need to drop your queen and your king in a place where most of the fire is going to go to the skeletons, and your heroes are going to survive most of the raid, because that's how you're going to 3-star.